Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is Farhad Ahmad. Today I'm gonna talk about COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on global political order. We know that COVID-19 pandemic is the biggest crisis of the 21st century we have been facing, and also we know that there are major crises also we have faced in the past. So all major crises have major consequences, usually unforeseen. If we look at the Great Depression, uh, the Great Depression spewed isolation, nationalism, fascism, and World War II, but also led to the New Deal, the rise of United States as a global superpower, and eventually decolonization. If we look at the 9/11 attack, which produced two failed American interventions. Number one is the rise of Iran, and number two is the new form of Islamic radicalism. In 2008, financial crisis generated a surge in anti-establishment populism that replaced leaders across the globe. Future historians will trace comparably large effect to the current coronavirus pandemic. The challenge is figuring out them ahead of the time. So it is already clear that why some countries have done better than others in dealing with the crisis so far, and there is every reason to think those trends will continue. It is not a matter of regime type. Some democracies have performed well, but others have not, and the same is the true for autocracies. The factors responsible for successful pandemic responses have been state capacity, social trust, and leadership. So countries with all three: a competent state capacities, a government that citizens trust and listen to, and effective leader have performed impressively, limiting the damage they have suffered. Countries with dysfunctional state, polarized societies, or poor leadership have done badly, leaving them citizen and economics exposed vulnerable. So what are the political consequences would be, or what will be the situation of political order in the global level after or post COVID-19? We know that the political consequence could be even more significant. A long-lasting epidemic combined with deep job losses, a prolonged recession, and unprecedented debt burden will inevitably create a tension that turn into the political backlash. But against whom it is not clear. The global distribution of power will continue to shift eastward, since East Asia has done better managing the situation than Europe or the United States. As we know that how China controlled its coronavirus and other Asian states, while the Europe and United States have failed to respond it correctly. So United States lose its prestige also enormously. The country, although has vast potential to state capacity, had built an impressive track record over the previous epidemiological crises, but currently highly polarized society and incompetent leader like Trump blocked the state from functioning effectively. So over the year to come, the pandemic could lead the United States relatively decline and the continued erosion of the liberal international order and a resurgence of fascism around the globe. It could be lead to rebirth of liberal democracy. So if we view consequences of the coronavirus from the pessimistic view, we can see that nationalism, isolationism, xenophobia, and attack on liberal world order have been increasing for years, and that trend will only be accelerated by the pandemic. Government in Hungary and Philippines have used the crisis to give themselves emergency power, moving them still further away from democracy. Many other countries, including China, Uganda, have taken similar measures. Secondly, the rise of nationalism will increase possibility of international conflict. Leader may see the fight with foreigner as a useful domestic political distraction, or they may be tempted by the weakness or preoccupation of the opponent and take advantages of pandemic to destabilize favorite target or create new fake on the ground. Thirdly, poor countries with crowded cities and weak public health system will be hit hard. Not just social distancing, but every single hygiene, such as hand washing, is extremely difficult in countries where many citizens have no regular access to the clean water, and government have often made matter worse rather than better, whether by design or inciting communal tension, undermining social cohesion by the simple competence. Apart from the pessimistic view of consequences of COVID-19 pandemic, if we look at the opportunistic view, we can see that Great Depression is not only produced fascism but also reinvigorated status and create the condition for long overdue structural reform. That pattern is likely to play out again, at least in some places. So pandemic has shown a bright light on existing institutions elsewhere, revealing their inadequacies and weaknesses. So after looking at the inadequacies and weaknesses, the world can reform their institutions, and the crisis may ultimately spur renewal international cooperation, because in order to have a peaceful society or combat with invisible enemy, state need international cooperation. So while national leaders disaster and is just a failure, the era after that could see a renewed commitment to working multilaterally to advance common interest. So, and the finally, you can see that a coin has two sides. So, we can only predict the coronavirus consequences, but real situation may be different. So, we have to wait until then to see what is going to happen. As a social scientist or political scientist, we only can predict, but we cannot be sure that this will be happen. So these are the our pandemic post pandemic prediction. So maybe this type of consequence happen or may not be. That's all from us. From me. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.